You've made good decisions all your life. Let your last be your best. Find out what it's all about coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Happy Labor Day and welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at Advanced Audiology and Hearing Aid Center off of Highway 17 at 6th Avenue South, across from the main post office in North Myrtle Beach. We're focused on the after-death industry, and we're visiting with the funeral director and embalmer, Neal. Good morning, Rick.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming in. What about this Advanced Audiology?
Yeah, this is great. Beautiful building up here.
It is.
And she's all over. I mean,
yeah, she is.
Conway and Myrtle Beach, or
she's got
Surfside, and then
all
up
over.
here.
That's right. Yeah. I think 3 or 4, maybe
yeah, three offices. I think.
Seems like she is everywhere. You're right.
Yeah.
And that U.S. Post Office right across the street. It's so easy to find this location.
Sure is. Sure is.
It really is.
Yeah.
Are you originally from the area, Rick?
No, sir. I'm from Kentucky originally. Well, I was born in Ohio, and then when I was 12 years old, my father moved us to Kentucky, and we started farming.
Is that right?
And I was raised in a little town called Pine Knot, Kentucky.
Pine Knot. Is that
Pine
2 words?
Knot. That's 2 words.
Right.
It's right in the middle of the big South Fork National Recreation Area and near Cumberland Falls State Park. Mm-hmm. So our house was 15 minutes from both.
That is fascinating.
Yeah, lived there and graduated school there, high school there.
Okay, good.
Till I left for college.
Is that right? Had you thought that was going to be an area that you wanted to spend much of your life?
Well, yeah, but you know, my folks always loved the beach area. Mm-hmm. We always talked about moving to the beach, and Dad always thought he wanted to move to Florida, but you know, he was crippled up and wasn't able to, so I stayed there and then moved here in 2001.
Is that right, 2001?
Yeah.
So you were in Pine Knot, Kentucky almost the entire time prior to moving here?
Well, yeah, except what time, I was in college and what time I was in the United States Navy.
You were in the Navy?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is that right?
Yeah, I was stationed out of Mayport, Florida, on the USS Dale. I was a radioman.
Did you have any combat time there?
Well, no, but I sure got scared a few times.
I bet, yeah.
But I didn't go to Vietnam, but I was in during the Vietnam era.
Right. Wow, what was that like being on a ship?
Well, I thought it was the best branch of service to go in.
Yeah.
But at times it was tough. It's tough being away from your family, when you go on a med cruise or something like that.
Right.
It's tough being away from your family. Mm-hmm. But, you got 3 meals to eat a day and a place to sleep. And I thought it was good duty, real good.
You have
duty.
brothers and sisters, Rick?
No, I'm an only child.
Is that right? Are your parents still living?
Well, my father died back in 82.
82, 25 years ago.
Yeah. And then my mother's living, and she's remarried, and I have a real good stepfather.
Does your mother live down here?
No, sir. They live on the farm, the family farm up home.
In Pine Knot?
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
Yes,
That's
sir.
Fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
That is, do you still get back up there much to see your mother?
Well, I talk to Mom 4 or 5 times a day.
Oh, come on.
Yes, sir.
It's 7 a.m. on Labor Day. How many times? You'll talk to her 4 or 5 times?
I have already talked to her this morning.
No.
Yes, sir.
She's an early riser.
Yeah, buddy. And she tells me, she says, when you get out of bed, I expect you to call. And if I don't call by 8 o'clock in the morning, by 5 after 8, my telephone's ringing.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm Mama's baby boy.
Yeah, that's right. As an only child. Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly right. Golly, Rick, it's so fascinating when you think about, and you said you moved here in 2001.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What prompted the move?
Well, I had my own funeral home up there for 18 years.
Is that right?
Yeah, I was in business for 18 years in Pine Knot. And then, we was there, and one day we had bought some property down here that we wanted for retirement.
Good, yes.
And, we just love this area, and every time we get a chance, we'd get away and come down here and stay in it. And me and my wife was talking, Bonnie, and we just decided, it's time to go. It's time to make a move. Mm-hmm. So we made the leap.
Right.
And love it. Absolutely love the beach area.
It is.
Yeah, I was telling Mama last night, we was talking on the phone, and I said, this is just paradise down here. I said, I just love living here.
Yeah. Of course, your wife ties into one of our later guests this week. Coach Cliff Ellis is going to be with us here at Advanced Audiology on Friday. I believe she and Coach Ellis work together.
She's his secretary, administrative assistant.
Right, great. Of course, tomorrow and Wednesday, Senator Dick Elliott, I think, is going to be with us on Wednesday. I know he'll be here with us tomorrow. We hope he'll stay over and be with us on Wednesday. And then Representative Tracy Edge from District 104 right here in North Myrtle Beach will be with us on Thursday. Should be a very exciting week, but it's great to kick off the week with you. And when we think about the after-death industry or the afterlife industry, when folks think about funeral homes and crematories, what is it they normally consider that? What is that industry? Is it just the funeral business?
Well, yeah, and a lot of people they don't know what to think about the funeral business because it's stuff that's never been discussed,
right.
And it's coming more open now, and people's talking about it. You was talking about Tracy Edge. Robert Edge, his brother.
Robert Edge is his brother.
Yeah, and he's the coroner and has been here for like 20 years or something.
Wow.
And he was on the news last week, and they had done an interview with him. About some of the deaths and stuff like that.
Sure.
So people's opening more up to talk about it and everything now than what they used to talk about it. Sure are.
As a funeral director, is that something that, and you're also an embalmer, is that something that you're licensed to do?
Oh, yeah. I went to the Kentucky School of Mortuary Science in Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay.
And now, since then, the school's closed down and it's moved across the river into Jeffersonville, Indiana, and it's Mid-America College of Mortuary Science.
Okay.
And but I graduated there in 75.
Is that right?
75,
wow.
Yes, sir. And so then I got my license for funeral director and embalmer in Kentucky. I'm also licensed funeral director and embalmer in Tennessee, and licensed in South Carolina funeral director and embalmer.
Is that right? In 3 states. Are the licensing requirements the same in all 3 states?
Well, when I got my license in Kentucky, then they reciprocate with the other states. You do have to come in and take a law test.
Sure.
On the laws of that state, and test about pre-need, pre-need funerals and stuff like that, advanced planning and stuff like that. You have to take a test about that. But, I've got license, and I'm also eye enuclealist through the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, Tennessee.
What is that, Rick?
Well, removal of eyes for transplant.
Oh, wow, okay.
Now, and see, I did a lot of that through the hospital in Knoxville, Tennessee, University Medical Center, and then I also did it in Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
Okay.
While I was there, and got a lot of experience doing it. But in South Carolina, now they have Life Point that comes and does that. The funeral directors here doesn't.
Is that right? Funeral directors do not do that in this area.
Right. So, but and that's sponsored through the Lions Club. Was when I was
Is that right?
Yeah.
I saw you were very active at the Lions Club up in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Were you a president?
I was president of the Lions Club, and then in Tennessee, when I was living in Tennessee, see, we're right on the Kentucky and Tennessee state line.
Pine Knot.
Yeah. So right across the state line is Oneida, Tennessee, and I was active and past president of the Kiwanis Club in Oneida, Tennessee, and then I was a charter member with Gideon's International, setting up a club in McCreary County, Kentucky, where I'm from.
Son of a gun, that's fascinating. A lot of service there, obviously, and the involvement there in public service. Those Lions Clubs are tremendous.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. And a lot of people, and which is a great thing, a lot of people when they die, their families, just like me, wearing glasses.
Right.
They'll take those glasses and give them to us, and we donate them and give them to the Lions Club, so they can give them to other people and use them and stuff. They use the frames, use the lens, whatever, for people that's not fortunate enough to be able to buy glasses.
Rick, we have you listed, obviously, as a funeral director and embalmer. Embalming is a very important aspect of what happens when someone dies. Break that down real quick for viewers who may not understand exactly what happens when a loved one dies, or even when they die later in life? What's going to happen?
Well, you know, some people opt for embalming with a visitation and a funeral service, you know, or there ought to be shipping, you know, where they ship just from here, which is a big vacation area, and then people, a lot of big retirement area, people come in here, and, you know, they'll embalm them and ship them out of town, you know, or to another state or to another country. You know, I've been involved in the funeral business here since 2002, and shipped people all over the world. And but embalming is it's a sterile technique of preservation and to a lifelike restoration, you know, of dead human remains, you know. And it's and you try your best to make them. You can't make them to where they are a lifelike appearance, but to where they're as much as you can possibly to be a comfort to the family, where the family has a good memory picture. That's what you're looking for, a good memory picture, that whenever they come into the funeral home and whenever they leave the funeral home after they've seen the person, that they have a good memory picture, that they can think back and think that they was comfortable and they was resting and, you know, at rest. And that's big with families.
That memory component is a very critical one. Just early this morning, I had picked up in the a little scripture here about it was titled "Able to Forget," and it highlighted that on a. Can I just read that to you real quick?
Yes,
it's very interesting. On a cold, dreary November day, I attended the funeral of a friend, and during the eulogy, the widow began to sob loudly. At that point, the pastor spoke odd words, just odd words meant to comfort. That's okay. Someday you'll be able to forget. Able to forget. The widow's expression made it clear that she had no desire to forget. And I think you just drove home that point. It tied in real well, and it only tied. I just brought that in thinking we'd find some way to tie it in this morning, but you highlighted that desire oftentimes for a family member to remember that loved one, and to remember them oftentimes for very long periods of time.
Well, you know, you talk about embalming. Embalming is not always necessary. You know, there is cremation, and there is direct burial without embalming. You know, in some religions it does not want embalming.
Is that right?
Yeah. And so...
And why wouldn't they want it? The embalming is the process itself, though. The process of embalming is draining the fluids. I mean, it's quite a bit of a process.
It's an arterial injection, you know, into the arteries, and you know, you replace the blood with embalming fluid, more or less.
Right.
You know, and and you know, setting the facial features and everything where they have a comforting look, you know, and trying to have respect and dignity and treat them the very best way you possibly can.
Yes. You know. You began to mention cremation, Rick. Is that something that families often turn to?
Yeah, more than they did. You know, and cremation is, you know, it's not the end, because with cremation they can have a memorial service at a later time. You know, right now, the way people work and the way people live all over the country and all over the world, and if someone dies with embalming, you know, usually the service is pretty quick. But with cremation, they can come and they can set up a memorial service at a later time and a more convenient time for families to get together. You know, the thing that a family needs to do is, at the time of death, is to get in touch with your funeral director and set up an appointment as soon as possible to get the death certificate, to get all that taken care of, because before anything can happen, that death certificate has to be signed.
Right.
So, and
that's in every state.
Yes, sir. That's every state. And so you have to have the doctor or the coroner, you know, to sign that death certificate and take care of that, because, you know, people need the death certificates to finalize estates and all that, you know, to probate a will and all that, for insurance, all that stuff. So, and you give the funeral director the information, and they go through the Department of Vital Records.
Okay.
Right here in Conway. If you have a death here, the funeral director can take the death certificate after get it signed by the medical professional and the funeral director, and all the information on it, take it over to Conway, and the ladies' Vital Records over there will issue a death certificate right then.
That is very important.
Yeah, very important.
How is a cremation service different from a traditional service, Rick?
Well, a traditional service, you have the body there. A cremation service, you have the ashes. And, they'll be in an urn or some kind of a temporary container urn or something like that. There's all different things that they can buy. There's, if, it's according to how people feels about the cost, they can start, at one thing and go just to whatever they, would like, how formal they would like a service. There's all different types of services.
Is a casket required?
No, not for cremation. It's not.
Sure.
No, but you do have to have an alternative container.
Okay.
And that means a hard, rigid container to protect the body and protect the operator that's doing the cremation itself.
Sure, of course.
It is required. You do have to have that.
Very important. We think about, how is the cremation in and of itself accomplished, Rick? How does someone go about, how is the cremation accomplished?
Well, the first thing they got to do is the next of kin has to sign a cremation authorization.
Okay.
And you have to have the death certificate. And you have to have a burial removal transit permit. And, that's some of the permits that has to be given. Right? Then we take that and we give it to the coroner's office, and the coroner's office gives the authorization for us to cremate.
Right.
But when they give that authorization, and there's a 24-hour waiting period after the family signs a cremation permit. So we can take that after the 24 hours. Then the cremation chamber, you place the body in the cremation chamber, and through heat and evaporation of the body, it reduces it down to where just the elements is just very fine, very small bone fragmentation is what it is.
Boy, that is a total end in itself.
Yeah. Well, it is an end for some people, but there's some people that really wants that.
Really?
And with memorialization, that's just like, somebody, if you go out to, some of the piers, you'll see little tags out there nailed on the pier that says "in memory of," and it'll have somebody's name and a date.
Is that right?
And they're nailed out at the end of the pier. That's where people's taking the ashes out there and put the ashes in the water. Of course, you can also, the funeral homes here can get there's an airplane service over here at Ramp 66, I believe it's called.
Grand Strand Airport.
Yeah, at the Grand Strand Airport, and they will take the cremains up and scatter them for you at sea. But then there's also in the cemeteries, there's columbariums where you can put, and in columbarium is made to put cremains in, and a niche is what that you put the cremains inside that.
What do folks usually do with the remains? Are there things that are most common, or the piers, or putting them out over the water? What about in the rest of the country? Let's say in Pine Knot, Kentucky. What was the most usual, or was cremation a popular service in Pine Knot?
Very few. Very few.
Okay.
Very few. Up there, there's very few cremations done. But what people most of the time done, they would keep them at their house.
Right.
And buy some kind of an urn and keep them, or take them to the cemetery and bury them, because you can take them to the cemetery. Because up there, there's, from our little town, our county only had 16,000 people in it. So to find a columbarium, you had to go pretty good distance to get to one. There wasn't such a thing there.
Is a funeral director necessary for cremation?
Yes. Yes, you have to have a funeral director to sign the death certificate and everything. So you just can't just do it yourself.
Can't do it on my own.
No, sir. No, sir.
That's good to know.
So you'll have to call a funeral director.
It's early on Labor Day, but I don't think I'd want to get into that. Yeah, that's very important. And obviously,
we'll barbecue after a while, but
right. Is embalming necessary on a cremation?
No, sir.
That is not necessary.
That's not necessary, unless they want to have a typical type service.
Right.
They can have a full traditional service, and at the end of that service, instead of going to the cemetery, they go to the crematory.
Okay, right.
So, but if, they can, some crematories will allow a metal casket, but most crematories wants a combustible material. Wood, cardboard.
Oh, yeah.
Pressboard, something like that they do want to put in there that's combustible.
Are cremations pretty expensive, Rick, or is that an alternative that folks are thinking about?
Well, direct cremation's not. Right. But if you can go from there and go right on up to whatever expense you want to.
Sure.
It's just like, It's kind of like buying a car. You can buy a Volkswagen or you can buy a Rolls Royce.
Right. Yes. Yes. Even on the cremation side.
That's right. The main thing in what people need to do, they need to tell their family what their wishes is. You can stop by most of the funeral homes, and if you don't want to go in and prearrange with the funeral home and make prearrangements right then, they have booklets that you can take home, and you and your spouse or you and your family sit down and fill out, and it tells all about Social Security and veterans benefits and everything, and all the stuff. They have everything, and you can fill this out. And normally there's two sides of this, One side that you can tear out and mail to your funeral director and just keep it on record. Right. And then if something happens, you tell your family, we'll call such and such funeral home.
Sure.
They have my records there. They have all my wishes. And that's the main thing is, let your family know what your wish is in advance.
That is very important. Rick, we've only got about 5 minutes. But, when we think about licensing in a state, is that really important to be licensed?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, what is it? There's a state board of licensing. Why is it that? I mean, this is a very heavily regulated industry.
Yeah, regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. They have. I mean, everything in the funeral business is open book for the federal government to come in and look at and see what you're doing. All the funds that you pay on pre-need. It's all regulated through.
When you say pre-need, for a viewer who may not be familiar with that, what does that mean exactly?
That means going into the funeral home in advance and paying for your funeral services in advance. Because that money, it's regulated. It's just not money that you're just giving the funeral director and that he can take and use the way he wants to. I mean, that's money that has to be put in a trust.
Right.
Or has to buy an insurance type an insurance policy type thing that will cover your cost. And the thing of it is, if you do pre-need, you're locking in the price.
Great. Sure.
If you go in and pay for that now, and you live 10, 20, 30 years, the funeral director that locked that in still does it for that cost.
Sure.
So
that's something that, let's say up in this area, Lee Funeral Home, up in Little River, North Myrtle Beach, or McMillan Small down there, or Goldfinch, or so many of the other great funeral homes in this area, they're all capable of handling pre-need.
Oh, yeah. And it's a big thing in this area. Pre-need is a big thing, with the funeral homes here.
Sure.
So I'm well acquainted with all the funeral directors, and all of them have pre-need specialists that work for them.
That's great.
That if you're not able to come into the funeral home and take care of it, they come to your house and they can bring all the books and everything. And I mean, they have it on laptop computers, of all the different type of services. They can show you everything.
Oh yeah, sure.
All the price lists and everything, and then you have time to think about it.
Right. So it's not in a rush right after someone has passed away.
Right. Because if you don't have any arrangements made, then just as soon as you do, there is a death, you got to contact the funeral home, and things get. People trying to come in, people trying to get together, get kind of a turmoil sometimes. Caring
for people in those very turmoil-laden times, Rick, that requires a lot of fortitude. What is it that you think you got from an early age that has given you that fortitude to really be able to care for others in their time of sorrow?
That's it, just taking care of people and seeing, it's not that they have to come up and pat you on the back and shake your hand and all that, just seeing someone go out and just a nod of the head, just to let you know that you've done everything you possibly could to help that family.
Right.
And that means everything in the world.
Yeah, it's got to, I know.
Because that's when you got people at their lowest time. It's when they've lost one of the most precious possessions they have, a loved one.
And that is, and I can see you're clearly emotional about it. It's very important that you think about that role making a difference for folks, that God has been a really important part of that for you to be able to hold that role for others.
Yeah, buddy, being a Christian, and working with the pastors and stuff like that, has just been just a great life for me. I have a great life.
Yes. Of course, Bonnie, we talked about your beautiful bride, Bonnie, who works
childhood
with
sweetheart.
Coach Cliff Ellis there. You also have children. Have either of them or any of all four of them gotten active in the industry?
Well, my son, Aaron, he's a licensed funeral director.
Great, good.
He's a licensed funeral director. He doesn't practice.
Right.
He owns a construction company here in Myrtle Beach.
But, Southern Construction Remodeling.
Yes, sir. Yes, thank you. And he owns that. And then my other son, Paul, that lives in Kentucky, He's thinking about it. He
Really?
doesn't know. He doesn't know whether he wants to. He's 32 years old, but he doesn't know whether he wants to go into the medical field or go into the funeral business.
Right.
We've talked about it. Talked about it a lot. So he's very interested in
Your
it.
girls?
Well, I got a daughter down here that's RN at Grand Strand.
Grand Strand, yeah.
And she
Georgetta.
Georgetta. She's helped me a many of a time embalm bodies and help. She loves the just like you see on TV, the CSI work.
Right, sure.
She loves that because she can go in and work with accident victims and stuff. And
she helps out. I mean, you are still the licensed embalmer.
Right.
You're the one performing it, but she can help. That's great.
Yeah, because she always wanted to get in the medical field or the funeral business.
That's great.
So, and then I have another daughter, Alicia, and she's in Augusta, Georgia, her and her husband.
Right.
And got me this tie.
I love it. That's a very handsome tie. Well, I'm sorry we've run out of time, Rick. There's so many things we could get into, but surely making a difference for others is clearly the centerpiece for you.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's a great life. It is, for just being service to people, and trying to help somebody when they're at the bottom of the barrel.
That's great. Those are great words. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Stay tuned to funeral director and embalmer Rick Neal coming up next. Starting in his teenage years when a biology teacher talked to him about getting interested in the funeral home business. Think about that. Fast forward more than 30 years and the excitement of being here in the Myrtle Beach area making a difference for so many others. If you want to learn about cremations or learn about services, traditional or non-traditional services, the opportunity to really get involved or even learn more about embalming. Rick's always happy and willing to accept a call, 602-3251. That's 843-602-3251. Give him a call if you're interested. He can introduce you to a whole nother world. Very exciting one at that. Happy Labor Day.